going to be talking about portable off-grid solar. And normally those terms are not used together, right? So we're going to be talking about the ability to run your house, yet take your solar with you if you had to. Okay. My next class, or after this one, is about EMP, and we talk about specifics of importance of bugging in and bugging out. Essentially, you need to have both plans, because you don't know if a wildfire is coming through, and you can't stop that. So you have to have that option of bugging out. Or maybe the roads are completely iced over, and there's no way you're getting out. You have to be able to bug in. There's no one or the other. It's not this or that on this side of the fence. You got to have both options. And there are many things that can cause these power outages, whether it's winter storms, windstorms, flooding. Around here we don't really get hurricanes, which is a good thing. I lived in Houston for quite a while and went through hurricanes, and it is not fun. EMP threat, earthquake, just power outages in general. All of these things will cause a necessity to create power for at least some period of time. And without the power, big chaos can happen. And so hopefully nothing quite like this. You know, spam turkey cans isn't really my cup of tea. But we want to be able to prepare in the best way we can. So for an EMP attack, according to the EMP Commission, they said they were expecting 2 to 10 years without power from the grid. Okay? And if you come to my class, I'll explain why. But you need 2 to 10 years of power if you want power when an EMP attack happens. Okay, so you got to think, if you're preparing for that, long-term power. If it's a hurricane, 1 to 4 weeks, depending on how close you are to the coast usually, varies how much time you need to account for a power outage. Tornadoes are the same. Flooding is usually 1 to 2 weeks. Snowstorms about a week. Earthquakes a week. I have snowstorms listed on there twice. I meant to put windstorms. 2 to 5 days. Oh, sorry. I messed up there. Anyway, the point is you need to know what you're preparing for. Okay? Now, I know for me, I'm preparing for an EMP attack. Anyone else worried about an EMP attack? Okay. So at least 50% of you. Hurricanes, anybody? Probably not so much unless you're visiting from a coastal state. Snowstorms. Absolutely. Right? Definite possibility. And so you have to know what time frame you're looking for. So looking at power, what I did is I took my electricity bill and I started figuring out my daily power usage. Yes?
You know what you have to worry about up there?
What else?
2 crows.
2 crows.
That's what forgot to go to the station.
Oh, okay. So yeah, Oh, did it? I didn't hear about that one. Yeah, the stations for the power station is actually quite fragile. Yeah, they're very, very fragile. So you don't even need an EMP attack to cause long-term issues, right? And that's why I put power outages there, because you never know what could happen. So for myself, for my family, we have propane, heat, and cooking, so we don't have electrical, which reduces our power bill quite a bit. And a lot of people around here are in a similar boat. Okay, so for me, I only use on average 18 kilowatts a day, which is 18,000 watts. Okay, so what I'm trying to figure out is if I'm going to use off-grid portable solar, how big does this system need to be to work for my needs? Because there are 13 major solar generators out there that people have generally heard of, and there are 1 or 2 at most that can actually handle long-term power outages. So just because you buy a solar generator doesn't mean you're set, which is why I wanted to do this class to help clarify that. So if I wanted to run everything like normal, I need 18 kilowatts a day. For short-term, absolute essentials, emergency power, I use about 1,500 watts or 1.5 kilowatts a day. Okay, it's basically like fridge, freezer, lights, fans, real essential stuff. And then if it's a long-term power outage, and I need to use a little bit more power, say I'm running my well pump or something like that for periods of time, it's about 4,000 watts a day for long term. Okay, so these numbers will vary for you. I have a family of 4. My parents use only about, I think it's 12 kilowatts a day, and they're just 2. So depending on how many people you have will change how much power you're using every day. So knowing this, I went through my house, literally every single room, and I just did a 360-degree turn and thought, what am I using on a daily or weekly basis? Something I'm using very common. And this was what I found. Okay, and I'm sure there's stuff that I'm missing in here, But whether it was just the furnace or our computers, garage door, power tools, sprinklers, all of this stuff is my normal daily use. So really, if I wanted to get solar installed on my house, I know that I need to be able to produce at least 18 kilowatts a day to run all of this, and then have enough batteries to run my nighttime stuff. Okay? Now for short-term emergencies, what's in green here are the things that I have found that I use in power outages for essentials. I know I need to run my fridge and freezer because I don't want to lose all my food, right? We actually had that happen to us. I had just gone on a hunting trip. All of our meat was in the freezer, and then we took another trip and came back, and the power was out, and all the food was gone. And we were not too happy about that. And that was a lesson that I'd never wanted to have repeated. So we did something about it. So very simple stuff, right? And a lot of these things like microwave, we're only going to be using for a couple minutes at a time. So we really don't need a ton of long-term power for that. So 1.5 kilowatts a day, I can run my bare essentials. I've got a hand pump on my well, so if I absolutely have to, I can get water, all those kinds of things. Now, if we're talking 2 to 10 years power outage, I would prefer to have a little bit more that I can use, such as my water pump, septic pump, well pump, my washer machine, all of those kinds of things. So I'd prefer to have those, and that's what causes this to go up a little bit. Okay, so think 2 to 10 years. So imagine right now the lights went poof, out. You drive home, and what do you need to run? Okay, you know it's going to be out for 2 weeks. What are the things you absolutely need to plug into a generator? Okay, that's your essentials list. And then imagine it being out for 2 months. What else do you need to run? That's kind of the steps you take to figure out what you need to run and how to build your system. Is there anything else you guys can think of that's not on this list? Or so has anyone here heard of colloidal silver? Okay, so a nano silver is like colloidal silver. All it is it's a silver particle attached to an H2O particle, and silver has healing properties. It can kill viruses, it can kill bacteria, and so it's kind of like a homeopathic flu killer kind of thing. You can spray it on your countertops and disinfect them. You can bathe in it and it'll clean your body. You can do all sorts of stuff with it. It's just it's almost like a disinfectant. Yeah.
And it will kill even MRSA at 6 parts per million.
MRSA at 6 parts per million it'll even kill. Yeah. So nano silver is just something I actually grew up using, colloidal silver. And I used to use it for acne when I was a teenager. I'd spray it on my face, and the next day my acne would be gone. I used to get hives growing up, and hives would last for days, but if I sprayed the silver on it, it would go away in 5-10 minutes. It has a lot of really cool, unique benefits. Claudia Orgil was actually one of the vendors that wasn't able to make it because her son got sick, and so she couldn't come up today. But she makes a really, really high-quality yet affordable nano silver machine. So if you look up Claudia Orgil Nano Silver, you'll see what she's talking about. And it's just, they use a mason jar, they keep it really simple, and it even has a backup battery bank that you can use off-grid. So if the power went out, you can run it off a USB charger. So other systems don't have that capability. So thank you for asking. So what do I need my solar generator to do? Now, the biggest reason most people get a solar generator, besides wanting to run stuff, is they don't want to have to do all the work to solder wires and use batteries and figure out how a generator works, because it is quite complicated. So in series, how it goes, you start with a solar panel, which collects the energy from the sun, and then that gets put into what's called an MPPT charge controller. There's other types, but generally that's the kind that's used. And that makes the energy more efficient, essentially, so it's more usable. And if you have some items that can use direct current, right, you can plug straight into that and use the power. Otherwise, you're charging a battery which connects to an inverter, which allows you to run other common items that are alternating current. So I can already tell that half of you are kind of like, what? Okay? And that's okay. It took me like 3 years to figure out how this all worked. So that's one of the reasons why I like solar generators, is because it's pre-done. There's no questions. I turn the button on, I plug stuff in, and it works. Yes?
That system there I use.
Uh-huh.
Portable power. You don't use the light bulb.
Right. It's just a picture that can depict different ways of using it.
Well, your controller People specifically say don't plug anything directly into the controller. Always hook into the battery.
And that's why I don't build them. So there is an option to do it yourself. And if you know what you're doing, then it's really not that hard. I don't know what I'm doing, and in my experience, most people are a little hesitant to work with electrical stuff. I know when I do anything electrical in my house, I hire someone, because I used to be a technician for alarms, and I've got electrocuted one too many times, and I don't want to do it again. Okay? So that's why I steer away from them. However, there are YouTube videos out there that show you exactly how to build a solar generator. My issue is most of them show poor quality equipment, because do-it-yourself is generally what's the cheapest way. And the cheapest way doesn't cut it. When it comes to solar, it comes to energy, there is just certain things you need, right? There are many solar generators out there that I'm about to show you that will run a laptop for 5 hours. Who's going to need, as a necessity, a laptop for 5 hours during a blackout? Okay? They're the wrong type of mentality. So the point is, there's 8 things that I need my solar generator to do. I need it to be able to run my essentials, right? We've talked about that: fridge, freezer, microwave, maybe medical devices like CPAP machines, those kinds of things. I need it to be quiet. Can anyone guess why I would want it to be quiet? Exactly. When we went through Hurricane Ike in Houston, we knew it was coming, and we lived in a cul-de-sac of 5 neighbors, and once a year we had a preparedness meeting, like block party. And my parents always hosted it, and it was, hey, just make sure you have a couple weeks food and a couple weeks of gas and a little generator and stuff like that. And everybody's, oh yeah, that's great. Hurricane Ike came rolling through, and guess who was on our front doorstep the morning after? Everybody with 200-foot or 100-foot extension cables, wondering if they could hook up to our generator. Now, we were nice enough to tell them, okay, these are the hours you can use it, and you have to supply all of the gas for your use. You're not getting off this, for free. So they literally went and siphoned the gas out of their cars and brought it to us because they couldn't get gas from the station. So long story short, they didn't listen, and so it affected us because they knew that we were prepared. And our neighbors on the next cul-de-sac over tried to do the same thing because they could hear the generator. And there's actually, I met a guy, I think it was last year at this show. He used to live back east, and they had a huge snowstorm come in. And they're a lot more prepared generally because they get hit every year with a hard winter or snowstorm. So anyway, everybody went to bed. They had other gas generators running, right? And in one neighborhood, they lost, it was like 250 generators in one night. What happened is a bunch of thieves came in, and they went into everybody's garden sheds, pulled out their lawnmowers, cranked them, put them next to the generator, turned off the generator while everybody's sleeping, right? So no one sees, there's no lights to go off or anything. And they took the generators, and a couple hundred people lost their generators in a single night in this neighborhood, okay? If people can hear you, they will come looking for you, right? So I want it quiet, and you can't run a gas generator in your house, not even in your garage with the window open. 2 years ago, I met someone in Michigan. Some people did that. Some family friends of theirs. They opened the garage window, ran the generator, and thought the exhaust would go out, and they all died that night from carbon monoxide poisoning. Okay? So don't be stupid just trying to run some electronics. So that's why I need it to be quiet, so no one can hear it, and I don't want the emissions for safety reasons. Okay? Portable. Like I talked about, you need to be able to bug in and you need to be able to bug out. You can't just choose one or the other because you don't know what's going to happen. Us as preppers, we have this tendency of saying, when someone breaks into my house, this is how they're going to do it. Or when someone tries to rob me at the gas station, this is how they're going to do it. When the power goes out, this is what I'll do. And then it happens, and it's never how we plan it. Okay? So you have to be open to it can happen in any way. You may not have the ideal equipment to deal with it. You have to do the best you can. Okay? That's what prepping's all about. Has to be lightweight because I need to be able to get it from my house into my truck and wherever I'm going. Right? It needs to have a large battery capacity, depending on what I need to run. So if I only need it for 4 days and I'm going camping and I'm just running some lights, then it needs a small battery capacity. If I need to run my fridge, freezer, lights, fans, well pump, sump pump, all those kinds of things, then it needs to have a larger capacity because at night I'm not getting any power from the sun. So those are the things you have to look at. Recharge quickly. This is one that just blows my mind with solar generators. Yes.
Battery is 120 amp hours.
Yeah, it says 12 volt, 120 amp hours. It's just an example. I'm not saying that's the route to go. It's just to depict the kind of the bare necessities of putting a system together. Yep. So I needed to be able to recharge quickly because let's say I'm using a lot of energy at night and during the day. So I need it to make enough power to recharge during the day while still running my equipment so it's full, the battery's full, when I go to bed. Okay? Reliable, self-explanatory. That's one of the reasons I don't like gas and diesel, because they're mechanical. They are bound to fail or need maintenance at some point. Solar, there's no moving parts. So yes, it still has some failures that could happen, right? But it's much more reliable than gas or diesel. Yes? It is affected by an EMP, and we're going to get to that. Yep. EMP proof. Okay? Now, there isn't a solar generator that is EMP proof. There is only one solar unit out there that is EMP proof. It's made by Solarc, and it is not a generator. It is designed to go on a house. Okay? So that's going down the normal route of having someone put solar on your house and install the batteries and everything. And those range from $30,000 to $40,000 generally, plus about $5,000 for the EMP protection on it. So that's an additional fee. Okay? So this is what I need my generator to do. Now, if you're going to take a picture, this is where you want to take a picture. This same chart is at my booth. You can get a much closer picture, higher definition. Okay? I have spent hours and hours and hours on the phone and reading manuals with all these different solar generator manufacturers, getting all the fine details of the generators so I could find out what would be best for myself and for my family. Okay? And it actually is listed from left to right, from best to worst, from what I found for my situation. Okay? Now, I'm going to step over here, so I'm going to take a picture. Okay? There is a brand new solar generator that has just come out and is about to go on pre-order. And it is called the Titan. Okay? These other generators, like the K2 and Kodiak, are other great units. The Goal Zero, you guys have probably heard of. They're the most well-known. The Renogy Lycan. Renogy is a big solar company. Humless is another big one. The Patriot, a lot of people have heard about it, and not as many people have heard of the Fuel-less Lion, the Kohler. This is the older Goal Zero, Nature Power, or Nature Generator, Nature Power. Okay, so they all have different unique features. Now, we're going to go through this in a little bit of detail because this is what the whole presentation is about, is finding out what works best for you. So what works best for you may be different, from me. Okay, so this says battery capacity in watts. Okay, we're not going to get into amps versus volts versus watts, but you guys have all probably used a 60 watt or 100 watt light bulb, right? Incandescent light bulb. So for math reasons, this will run 21 100 watt light bulbs for an hour because it's 2100 watts, or it will run one 100 watt light bulb for 21 hours. You guys see how that math works? Okay, so you get terms of watt hours and all of that kind of stuff. The Kodiak, or the K2, is by far the next best, has 1100, so about half. And then the Kodiak 1100, the Goal Zeros are a little bit bigger than your standard size. This one, it's a little bit lighter than this one, and this is about 1400, and this is about 3100. Okay, and I should explain, dark green means it's like amazing. Green means it's good, yellow it's okay, red means bad news. Okay, so you can see the further down you get, the more red stuff you get. Okay, so really for the battery watts and capacities, there's only two that are dark green, and then a few that are green. So the Titan has the second largest battery capacity. And we're going to get into why I like this more than I like the Goal Zero. But either way, there are three different types of battery types: lithium ion, lithium iron, and then lead acid. Has anyone had any experience with lithium iron? Anyone used it at all? So it works as well as lithium ion. Lithium ion is considered about 8 times more powerful than lead acid. Okay? So it would take 8 lead acid batteries to equal 1 lithium ion battery. However, in the news, you've probably all heard about lithium ion phones or e-cigarettes blowing up and stuff like that, right? So lithium ion is considered less stable. Now, these batteries that use lithium ion are perfectly fine. They're never had an issue. But lithium iron is much more stable, but weighs as much as lead acid. Okay, so it's kind of a combination of the two. Lead acid is extremely heavy, like a car battery. Lithium ion is extremely light. And lithium iron kind of meets in the middle. So lithium ion and lithium iron are good, but lithium ion is much lighter. Inverter, the continuous power. This means how much power can you be running at one time without overloading the generator. And for the Titan, it's 2,500 watts. Everything else is 1,500 or less. Now, in the past, 1,500 was generally enough. But when we had power outages, we noticed there were certain things that sometimes we needed to build, and using a handsaw just isn't that fun, right? And so having the ability to use our big power tools like miter saws or table saws, drill presses, gave us that extra edge to really flourish through a power outage, build stuff if we needed to, right? And so having this extra inverter capacity is really nice to run that heavier equipment. This system, the Titan, has actually been running welders off of it, which no other unit has ever been able to do, which is pretty crazy. Okay, so 1,500 watts is fine for short-term emergency power because I can run my bare essentials. With the Titan, though, it expands much, much bigger. Inverter peak. So when you crank on a motor, it has a huge surge of energy, and then it kind of levels out, right? The Titan can handle up to 6,000 for 10 seconds, and the next best one is 3,000. So you can really handle some heavy-duty equipment. That way you can get those saws and that equipment running. Lifetime cycles. This is a big deal. 2,000 lifetime cycles. Okay, so if you were to... Does anyone know what a cycle is on a battery and want to explain it?
From full charge to be charged and again.
Perfect. Exactly. So, going all the way down and back up is one cycle. Okay, it's just one circle. And so you can do that 2,000 times. So if you were to go from full to empty to full every single day, it would last you 5.5 years. After 5.5 years, the battery is now at 80% efficiency rather than 100%. So rather than being 2,100 watts, it's now 16 and some change. So it's still a good battery, right? It still works decent. Yes?
Are you supposed to take it to full discharge, or are you supposed to just go 50%?
That is a great question. So with lithium ion and lithium iron, you can drain them safely all the way down to 10%. And that's the average for lithium ion and iron. The Titan can be drained to 3%. It is the only one that uses almost all 100% of the capacity, and it stays strong all the way to that point.
Why is that?
It's just the technology has come around to be more efficient.
When you're counting cycles, does 2 half cycles count as one cycle? That is, if you went down to 50% twice, is that the same as 100% once?
Yes and no. Technically, yes. However, it doesn't get because it doesn't drain all the way. It actually keeps the battery even healthier. So you would get more like 2,500 cycles or 3,000 cycles doing it like that. So these are worst case scenarios. If you had to drain it all the way down and all the way back up, you'll get a minimum 2,000 cycles out of it. So if you're not draining it as far, it'll last even longer.
It's better to have 2 50% cycles than it is to have 1
It is.
50% cycle.
Yeah. So you can always count on the 2,000 for easy math, but just know that if you don't drain it all the way down, it will last even longer. Yep. And even still, after 2,000 hard cycles, it's still going to be 80% as good. So there's not going to be a huge difference in the battery capacity. Okay, so in reality, this one battery will last 10, 11 years before it needs to be replaced if you did that a cycle every single day. Now, how long can an EMP attack last?
10 years.
About 10 years. That's one of the reasons why I stick with lithium-based batteries. It's because I know it'll last long enough. Now, to address the point that came up, lead-acid batteries can only be drained to 50%. So for every battery, you only get 50% of it. You can't use all of it. Yeah?
The other thing about your lead-acid batteries is that as they go down, so does your power.
Yes.
Go down.
They get weaker.
And so you're not getting 12 volts when it's at 75%. Your lithium ions, you get that 12 volts batteries and putting them on there, you've got to keep all that physics in mind. But if you bring them down too far, you've just lost your battery.
Yep, exactly. So you can ruin them in a night. Yeah.
Now, you said 50% for lead acid battery, but there are deep cycle lead acid batteries.
They'll let you go down to 30, but it really affects the life cycles, even dropping below with the deep cycle. You can go down to 30 at a max, but that really cuts into its life cycles. So so these numbers for the lead acid are based on a 50% drain. So it would actually go down if you went to a 30% drain. Yeah. So point is, stay away from lead acid if you can. It's the cheapest way to go up front. It is by far the most expensive way to go long term. Okay? Yes?
Just on the first one, the battery capacity, you have that in watts. Should that be watt hours? Or
It's kind of a fluid term. So yes, it's technically watt hours. And technically this is actually 2,047 watt capacity because you're only getting 97% of it. So I try not to get too deep into that because it can get too confusing too fast. So everybody uses the full capacity as their rating, so that's what we compare it against.
okay, but it is watt hours.
Yeah. Yep. Yes. Okay. So you notice, for example, the goal 0 is lithium ion, but it only has 500 cycles. So not all lithium ion is made equal. Goal 0 uses really low quality lithium ion battery packs, which means they have to be replaced after 500 cycles. So this would last me a year and a few months if, in best case scenario, if I had to do a full cycle every day. Okay, so the goal 0s are actually pretty decent, but it's pointless to me because if I'm preparing for an EMP and this isn't going to last me 10 years, what's the point, right? So I don't like the goal 0 lithiums because of that, but otherwise they're actually pretty decent. Moving on here, max solar power input. Now this is a big one as well. Let's say, so let's just go through this here. The Titan, you can connect 1,000 watts in panels to it. It has let's call it for easy math, a 2,000 watt battery. So if I have an empty battery and I'm getting full sun, it will take me 2 hours to charge, right? I make 1,000 watts per hour into a 2,000 watt battery. It is not a good idea to charge lithium faster than 2 hours because you'll reduce its life cycles because it gets worked too hard. So the Titan is built in a way that you can't overcharge it too fast in any way to reduce its life cycles. It can't be charged too fast. The K2 and the Kodiak can only put in 500 watts, and they have an 1,100 watt battery. So same thing, 2 hours, right? So you see a lot of these are 2 hour charge times, and that's because you don't want to charge it too fast. Now to that point, what's different about the Titan is you can get it up to 2,000 watts solar power input when you add an additional battery, because then you're at a 4,000 watt capacity, so then you can double your solar power input to 2,000 watts. So when you add a battery, you're at 4,000 watts, and so you can add more panels up to 2,000 watts, so you're still at a 2 hour charge time. Okay? Right. It's expandable. Right. So, and this is the point I want to get to, the solar panels are expandable on the Titan. Okay? On any other system, you cannot. So, for example, the K2, even if you add an extra battery, you're still at a maximum 500 watts per hour. Does that make sense? Raise your hand if it doesn't make sense, because I want this to be clear. Clear as mud. Okay, good. So, the point is, with the charge times, the fastest charge time with the normal battery shouldn't be less than 2 hours, and the fastest it can be is 2 hours. So that's good in both ways. 500 watts, 720 watts, 720 watts, and because of the battery capacity, this changes how fast it can charge. Okay? The solar panel connection type, the Anderson power pole, is one of the most common connection types out there, which means you can use any solar panel out there that you want. Now, there's different grades of solar panels, and like the one that I have on my booth, it's the only one that I'll use for my portable solar because it's the one that I've tested. I've tested about 18 different solar panels, and that's the one that did the best. And if we're talking long-term power, I don't want to go cheap because then when I need the power, I won't have it. Okay, this is where the quality is really important. The K2 uses a very specific connection called an EC8, which if you use race car or little remote control cars at all, then you're probably familiar with them. But if you haven't, then you're unfamiliar with them. It's a great connection type, but the problem is you are absolutely required to use their solar panels, which have been untested and unproven to see if they are any good. So for me, that is a huge red flag that you have to use their equipment. To me, that sounds more like someone's trying to get your money, not trying to help you get prepared, and I don't agree with that. And they don't make adapters for this. You have to use theirs. That's the problem. With the Kodiak, they use another very unique connection, but they made adapters. But they've discontinued all of that, so you are forced to now use this system if you go that route. So the Anderson power pole is a really common and easy. The 8mm Goal Zero has made many types of adapters, so it's still unique, but it's usable if you get their adapters. Okay. MC4, there's only one here that uses an MC4. For solar, MC4 is the most common connection type, and so that one you don't even need an adapter at all. Makes it really easy to use for plugging in. Fastest charge time, you can see all the comparison there. Simultaneous charging ability. Yes?
You said it takes 2 hours, but if you get a second battery, you double your solar panels. Can you just use the same solar panel and take twice as long?
Yes. Yes.
And if you're using it because power's out, and you're charging it up when the lights, when the sun's out, what do you do during that time that it's charging?
You can...
You use the power during that time? How does that work?
So let's say you're using 500 watts, right? You're running your fridge, freezer, fans, lights, who knows what, okay? You're running 500 watts per hour, and you're making 1,000 watts. So of the 1,000 watts you're producing, 500 of it goes straight to those items that you're running. The additional 500 will go to the battery and continue to charge the battery. It would just take twice as long. Yep. So let's say you drained it down to 50% overnight, and you need to charge it back up during the day, and you're making 1,000 watts and you're producing 500 watts. Well, the cycle is all based on the battery usage, not how much energy gets transferred through the inverter. So you drained it to 50, now you're draining it back up to 100, so that's a half cycle. So it's still the same math. It doesn't affect the cycles themselves. Right, so the charging time... Oh, I see what you're saying. Because it's charging slower, it won't work the battery as hard. Right, so technically yes, but it's really easy to get into these nitty-gritty details, and the real basic is, will at its max usage work for my needs? Because you don't want to be like, oh, well, I don't really need water today because I want to save my battery. I mean, I'm not that thirsty, right? Use it to its best ability, or use it based on these numbers of its best ability. Okay, there was one more quick comment, please.
If you do add an extra battery, it has to be exactly like the one you have, or your solar controller will not charge it. They have to be exactly the same batteries in particular, because the solar controllers are very specific. If you're going to put them together, it's charge both at the same time.
So yes and no. Generally, yes. With the Titan and the Kodiaks, or the K2, for example, the K2, you can add a lead-acid battery, but that battery can only be drained to 50%. And since it's connected with the lithium ion can go all the way down. So if you use it all together as one battery bank, you'll drain your external lead-acid battery all the way down. So then you have to treat your lithium-ion battery like a lead-acid. So...
But I use the lithium-ion phosphate battery. I have a 30-amp-hour battery and I have a 20-amp-hour battery. My solar charger will not charge both of those at the same time. I have to charge them separately because they're not the same.
So they have to be the same capacity.
Right.
Yes, they don't have to be the same chemical makeup necessarily.
Well, and I can do lead acid too, but I have to reset the controller to
Right. So they have to be the same capacity in amps and volts. Yes. Okay, thank you. So we're going to try to buzz through this here. The point is, the more green you see, the better it is. The reason I love the Titan is because as I expand it, it still stays quick charging and very capable. There are 5 hours a day you can count on for making your maximum amount of solar per day. So if you have a 100-watt panel, you take 100 watts times 5 hours on a perfectly clear sunny day, you'll make 500 watts. Okay? So you can't count on all the other time of the day. You will be making power, but the solar energy is just not based on that. You need to know how much you can make in a best day scenario. Best day scenario, as this sits, you can expand it up to a 10,000 watt battery capacity. So that would run my house with my long-term essentials for 2.5 days if the sun never came out. Okay? So the battery capacity really comes into effect because we don't always have bright sunny days, right? And so if I expand my capacity in batteries, say with the K2, if I expand it real big, but it's a cloudy day, I can't get more panels to charge it faster. So that battery capacity almost becomes a moot point, right? You have to be able to expand in your panels and your battery as well. The biggest defect that I've seen about the Titan is the car charger. Now it takes 20 hours to charge, whereas something like the K2 only takes 5 hours. And so I did some digging into this with the companies, and I found out that this is because it's using 200 watts per hour to charge from your cigarette lighter, which often it's about 18 volts, or amps, I mean. And your normal cigarette lighter can only handle 10 amps, which means at its best it can charge in 5 hours, but your car literally can't do it. So yes, it can, but it can't. So there's a little bit of confusion there. Whereas here I found out they don't go over that 10 amp mark, which means you're not going to drain your car battery while you're driving it or blow a fuse or anything like that. So yes, it does charge slower, but it means that it doesn't kill your car as you're driving it or blow a fuse or anything. So that's kind of the weakest point I found about this. The weight is the next weakest point. The beautiful thing about some of these units is like this is 20 pounds, this is 25 pounds. I can easily pick that up and get somewhere, right? I have a Kodiak unit. I love it. It's a great unit. And one of the things I love about it the most is how lightweight it is. But it doesn't have all the things that I need to be able to run, or it doesn't have the power to run my things long term, right? Only my bare essentials. Whereas the Titan, one of its unique features, and you can't really tell in this image, but I'll show you coming up here, the battery separates from the inverter, and each piece is 30 pounds. So in total, it's 60 pounds, which is pretty heavy. It's not comfortable to move around as one big unit, but I can flip the switches, and I can take the top unit and go put it in the truck, and that's easy. And then I grab the battery, and that's easy. So that's one of the very unique features about it that no one in the industry has done, is made it have stackable lithium batteries. So this is where you get into the ability of being able to put enough batteries to power your house, but if you need to leave, clip, and it's in the vehicle. Makes it very easy. We've got plenty of connectors. The Titan has a 5-year shelf life for the battery to remain at 100%. No one in the industry has this. The next best, I think there was one that's 6 months, right? The Patriot can do 6 months. All the others, you have to charge them up every 3 months. Just because there's still technically things that are being used in it that are draining tiny bits of energy. So after 3 months, you need to charge it up. With the Titan, its power switch is actually a breaker switch. So when you flip the switch, it 100% disconnects from the battery to all the connection ports. And because of the technology in this lithium-ion battery, it'll stay at 100% for up to 5 years. So, when is an EMP going to hit? We have no idea. When's the next snowstorm going to come in? We have no idea. But I don't want, well, I mean, it already happened, right? But we don't want, it's going to be in winter. But that's not necessarily absolutely true. We do live in Idaho. Okay, fair point. It could be late spring. Late spring to, or late summer to late spring, we'll say. Okay, there's a couple months where it may not happen. So the point is, I flip that switch and it sits on my shelf in my garage in a Faraday bag for 3 years. huge winter storm comes in, I know it's at 100%. I don't have to constantly be thinking, oh, great, I need to go take that out, charge it up, so on. Yes, come to my next class. We'll talk all about it. EMP will ruin it all. Yes?
When you're talking about an EMP, is the solar panel itself safe, or does it need protection as well?
I don't want to spoil my next class, but if it's not plugged in, it's safe. If it's plugged in, it is not. There's actually been some really cool testing on that. Yes?
How does cold weather temperatures affect?
Great question. Electronics work worse when they're super cold or super hot. Okay, lithium-ion batteries are generally safe down to 0 degrees. Okay, Fahrenheit. Yes. So, and they're safe usually up to about 140 degrees. So you can have it sitting outside, but you'd want it in the shade if it's during the summer. You can have it in your garage, but you need to be aware if it gets too cold. That can damage its life cycles. It has a really hard time starting up when it's too cold, essentially. So that is a good point, something to keep in mind. So this can sit for 5 years, and I don't have to worry about it being charged or not. Now, this has an expandable battery capacity up to unlimited amount of Titan lithium-ion batteries. You can technically use any other type of lithium-ion battery as long as it's the same capacity, meaning the amps and the volts and everything are the same. Okay, and that's the same for a lot of these. However, for example, you can have as many as you want lithium-ion batteries with the K2, but again, you're only going to get a maximum of 500 watts. So even though you grow your battery capacity, it's going to take much, much longer to charge. So kind of a double-edged sword there. The expandable solar panels are only an option with the Titan, and the expandable inverter. This is one amazing thing that's possible with the Titan. You can put one Titan and connect it with another Titan, which means it doubles its inverter capacity to 5,000 watts. Okay, my dad has an off-grid solar system on his house. His inverter to run his house is a 5,000 watt inverter. He has a 20,000 watt battery bank. Okay, and he's got about 4,500 watts in solar panels. It cost him well over $30,000 to get it. We're going to get into that. The point is, this has 3 ways it can expand, and it can also make 220 or 240 volts, which means you can actually plug this into your house like a big gas or diesel generator and run your well pump. You can run your dryer. You can run those extremely heavy-duty things all with this solar generator and disconnect it and put it in the car and go somewhere if you had to. Okay? It's only with the Titan. Again, no one else in the industry has done it. That's why I love this thing so much. It's pretty amazing. Okay, so let's get into how these kits size up. Okay, we're going to get into the Titan. I think we can effectively say for all this study, the Titan is the best. Right? There are other great units, but the Titan is the best for long-term power outage. So we're going to go from a small unit up to a really big unit, and we're going to show you some costs and so on. Okay, now. Every single one of these stacks of panels is equivalent to 500 watts. So we have 2 stacks, which makes 1,000. Yes, okay. And each battery, for easy math, we're going to say is 2,000 watts. Okay? So the inverter's 2,500 watts or 120 volts. So you can't run your well pump, but you can run everything else essentially. No 220 or 240. We've got 1,000 watts in panels, which means we can charge this in 2 hours. And we've got a 2,000 watt battery. And how many hours a day do we have to gain full power from the sun? 5 hours. So we take 5 hours, it ranges from 5 to 6 depending on the time of the year. So we say 5 to be safe. That's on a good day. Yes, these are based on good days. So we take 1,000 times 5. So we know we can make 5,000 watts in a day. Okay, that's plenty of power for even essential long-term power outage, right? So normally this kit would cost about $6,000. The pre-order price that the company is going to be doing, this kit would be about $1,000 off. Okay, now for a lot of people that's a huge, huge price tag, and it is. There's financing options available, or you can build it piece by piece. Don't get all the panels at once, right? build it out over time kind of thing. Now, let's say we add a battery. So we still have the same amount of panels. So the inverter's the same, panels are the same, but now we have 4,000 watts in batteries. This will take 4 hours to charge, right? So we're still only going to have a max power or a max production of 5,000 watts in a day with this unit, but I've got a lot more battery capacity. So this would last me 2.5 days if I got down to my bare essentials for a power outage. That's if the sun never came out, right? So a little bit more in price, $8,000 normally, but it would be $6,000 on pre-order. So that's another $1,000 savings, total $2,000. Okay. Now we're going to really start to expand this. Once you add a second battery, you can technically add another array of panels. So now we're up to 2,000 watts. And this is what we were talking about earlier. Okay. The inverter is the same, but now we have 2,000 watts in panels, 4,000 watt battery capacity. So now we can charge in 2 hours, even though it's a much bigger system, which means we can make 10,000 watts a day, which is a crazy amount of energy for a solar generator that you can put into your vehicle. So it would normally be about 11,000. This would be 9,000. So another $1,000 off. Okay. Let's get even bigger with this. If we added 4 more batteries for a total of 10, or for a total of 5. Inverter is the same, panels the same, but we would have 10,000 watts in batteries, and it would take 5 hours to charge, which on a clear sunny day, we could do all 10,000. We could completely fill up that battery bank if we weren't really running anything during the day, right? So that's its ability right here, 17,000. It's actually 14,000, so still saving about 3,000. Now we're talking about adding 2 Titans together, which the inverter now changes to a 5,000 watt inverter and the ability to run 220 or 240. Okay, they're the same thing. So this is where you're able to run your well pump and your dryer and your really big heavy duty equipment. Okay, so now because we have 2 systems, we double everything. Now we can have 4,000 watts in panels, which is a crazy amount of energy for a portable generator. The battery capacity is at 8,000 watts, which is plenty of power to run a couple of days without sun. We can still charge it in 2 hours, and we can make about 20,000 watts in a day. Yes. So each one is about 30 pounds. So you're not going to pick it all up at once. That's why it has the special detached system. You take the top unit, 30 pounds, go set it. Take the next piece, 30 pounds. So yeah, you're going to be doing a little bit of walking between wherever it's stored in your car. But we're talking about the ability to run your house and still put it in your car. So that's the beauty about it. Yes? Mm-hmm. Yes. It's easier than talking about amps and volts, because watts most people understand because we've all seen a 100-watt light bulb. Technically, yes. Yes. We're trying to make it as simple as possible. So, yes. Okay, now let's take this really big. Okay? Let's say that this is sitting in your laundry room, connected to your electrical panel. You have a 5,000 watt inverter. You can run 240. You've got 4,000 watts in panels. Your battery capacity is 20,000 watts. For my house, I only use 18,000 watts on a normal day in the beautiful life that we live without any EMP attack or snowstorm or anything. It'll charge it in 5 hours right here. This system would normally cost $34,000. The pre-order price will be about $25,000. This is stronger than my dad's off-grid solar system that he put on his house. He has a 5,000 watt inverter. He's got like 4,600 watts in panels, and he's got about the same battery capacity, but his is lead acid. So it'll only last him 500 times at a max. Okay? And he can only use 50% of the battery. So we have twice as much battery use, 100%, right, rather than 50%, and 2,000 times. So it's twice the capacity and will last 4 times as long, which makes it 8 times as good. So in his lifetime, if he drained his batteries, or if he had to replace 2,000 cycles in his batteries, he would be over about $60,000 for his solar system, okay, to run his house if he were completely off-grid and did a full cycle every day. With this, $25,000, and you can literally run your house. This is what I love about the Titan. Okay? If I wanted to live extremely comfortably after an EMP attack, I have that ability. Who's going to be the only guy running their sprinklers, right? After an EMP attack, someone who can run, with all the power. Now, I would never do that. Who cares if the grass is green when an EMP attack has happened? The point is, if I was using even 5,000 watts a day for a long-term power outage, that means I could go 4 or 5 days just in the battery capacity of pure darkness. So what are my chances of, even on cloudy days, being able to fill up the battery or fill it up enough to keep it from hitting zero when I'm only using 4,000 or 5,000 watts a day in a long-term emergency situation? Extremely likely. The system is incredible with its expandability. I can run my house with this according to the math that we've done. Yes. We'll start here first. We haven't identified that. So I don't work for the company that does this. I love it, and so I'm telling people about it. They haven't clarified that yet. If you do a house solar system, generally you do get the tax credit. If you're doing a portable solar system, you don't get the tax credit, because the point is it has to be for the house, saving power from the grid. Yes?
The panels, how big are those panels? Is it 5 for every stack you've got?
It's 5 for every stack, and these are 100-watt panels. This is based on the idea as if you still wanted to be able to take it somewhere with you easily. They're basically 2x4, a little less than 2x4. Okay? Now, it would be much more affordable to get the bigger panels that actually go on a house, but you're not going to get them into your car, right, or into your truck if you had to bug out. And so that's why it's based off of this. And so these are the highest quality 100-watt panels I've been able to find, period, after lots of testing. So this price would even go down further if you got different panels that were bigger, because you get the cost is less per watt, essentially.
How do you wire those panels? Do you wire them in series, parallel, or?
It's a series parallel combo. Yeah. So we're not going to get into that because it's a little confusing. It will be in the user manual, super clear, once you get it. Yes.
Can you buy the system piece by piece?
Yes. That is the beauty of it. You can start all the way back here, and you can grow it all the way to here. So you don't have to start with the $25,000 finance payment or whatever. Get what will run your essentials for a long time. Add a battery, add a panel. Add a battery, add a panel. Whatever works. Yes?
So one of my concerns about buying a system like this is it's brand new.
Yeah.
And it hasn't been fully vetted out in the market.
Correct.
How do I respond to that?
So this question is, this hasn't been fully vetted because it hasn't been on the market a long time, right? 100% true. The technology has been around for a long time. So all they've done is compiled the things that have been lasting a long time into a usable unit. Okay? So to that point, the company did about 4 to 6 weeks of extreme hard testing on the battery, on the inverter, on everything to see what would make it fail and what would make it work. So they have done extreme testing to make sure it works. In the end, yes, there could be something that happens. But that's with buying a car, that's with buying a pair of shoes, even if it's been around for a long time. So I understand the concern, and it's completely valid. And it's just part of what we go. So if you're not ready for it, if you want to see if there's any lemons out there, any issues before buying, wait a couple of months, and we'll have people saying, hey, this didn't work or that didn't work. But this is already going on 8 weeks of testing for the newest unit.
So is the product Titan, or is it?
The Titan is the model. The company's 0.0. 4 or 5 years. Yeah. They normally do big house generator systems. Yeah. First lithium portable one. Okay, there was a question over here first.
When we're talking about the battery storage, just talking about the offsets with no external discharge, but what about self-discharge? Because there's no way you can 100% battery charge in 5 years.
From the technology that they've had, it stays at 100% if everything's disconnected. That's just what the testing has done.
So how does the lithium ion not self-discharge?
I don't know.
Because you said they won't in 5 years. I don't believe it.
So 0.0 is not making the battery, right? No one makes lithium batteries in the U.S. So the manufacturers that have been doing this, making batteries for a couple decades, right? They're the ones that have been testing all of this stuff. I can't speak to that. I know that the company came with all the facts and said, here's the proof that it holds its charge. So I don't know that one specifically.
Speaking of manufacturers, are the batteries Panasonic, or do you know?
I don't know the brand on them. I know the battery company's been around for quite a long time, and they have the highest quality ones, lithium-ion batteries.
And this package that you're showing us with the Titan and the panels, that's all you need. You don't need anything else to go.
It will come with it'll come with a wall charger, car charger, shoulder straps, panel cables. It comes with everything else that you would need to connect it all together.
Right, but you don't need any other equipment besides the cable.
Right.
The panels have to be mounted on something that so it comes with mounting.
It doesn't come with mounting. The panels that I use, the ones that are shown here, on average had a 3 to 5% reduction in power production if they were flat on the ground versus pointed perpendicular to the sun. So you can build a stand and you can get that 3 to 5% more, but we're talking about out of 100 watts, instead of making 100, you're making 95. I'm not going to lose sleep over that. So yes, it would be best to build a stand. If you come to the booth, you'll see why. It has a very special finish on it. So even laying flat, it makes almost the same amount of power as up at an angle. It would. Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, we're talking about 20 or 40 panels. That's going to be a lot of ground space. There was one question here. Yes. So the floor, or the dimensions are 12 by 18. Okay? So it would be 12 by 18 by however tall you make it. So really, really small. Yep.
One of the most important things is to mount your collectors where they don't get covered up with snow.
So she's saying don't put your panels in a spot where they are least likely to get covered up in snow. So that's one of the reasons why I use these panels. In the testing that I did, I would cover one or multiple cells and check how much power it was producing. With these panels, if I covered one of the cells, say like a leaf or some snow or whatever got on it, it was still making about 40% of what it was making before that leaf or whatever got on it. The other panels lost 99% of the power production that they were making. If you covered one cell, the whole panel went out. With these other panels, you're still making almost half as what you were before. So yes, you do want to make sure there's no snow on them. It's just the way of life. There's no perfect way to have this, right? Life happens, weather happens, you gotta adapt. It's not you're just going to plug and play and unicorns are going to come out of it, right? The life of the battery cell? Oh, their ETFE finish, which means they won't discolor for 25 years. So, and last quite a long time, yeah.
The other question is the power company will buy electricity you produce.
They used to. Now they do a credit. So, yeah, so if you're grid tied, you can get a credit on when you're using their power. If you're completely off grid because of the capability of the system, then obviously you're getting nothing. Okay, so the time is up. I wanted to hit these last points. It really comes down to the numbers, right? Numbers do not lie. You have to know how much power you need to run in a short-term emergency, long-term emergency, and what you use daily to know what you want to do with a kit like this, right? If you only need to run some essentials for an emergency, then you don't want 8 other batteries attached to your system, right? That's way overkill. You just need to fit it to your needs. And what I recommend is start with a Titan and some panels and then grow. If you want to start big, then start big. But there's no absolute necessity to do it. Okay? The Titan generator will be shipping in about 30 to 45 days after the pre-order starts, which is March 15th. Now, my relationship with Point Zero is they're friends of mine, okay? So I actually helped give them input. I've been selling solar generators for quite some time now. So I took 3 or 4 years of feedback from customers, right, from hundreds of people saying, this is what we wish was different, this is what we wish was different, and helped them because Point Zero asked me, what are people wanting? And that's how they designed the system. So it's really the people's generator, right? Because it's what everybody else wanted. And so it was from other people's ideas to make it stackable and make it a bigger inverter. And all these things came from your guys or other people's ideas. Okay? That's where the company wants to be. Is they want to serve the people the best. They're not out there like most companies to just take your money, like forcing you to use their own panels or their own adapters and stuff like that. They want you to fit it to your needs. There will be this limited amount of pre-order until starting March 15th. So whoever's on that short list, what I'm saying is on March 15th, I'm their only dealer. The company is not interested in getting dozens of dealers and having everybody at each other's throats. They're doing a soft launch. They're not doing a Kickstarter. They're not doing anything big like that. They want to make sure that the first units, like you're talking about, are absolutely perfect and that there's no question about them. They don't want to send out 500 units and find out that a fuse doesn't work and then it explodes, right? Yeah, that was one that we didn't even talk about. All the other generators have a 1-year warranty. The Titan has a 2-year warranty. So you can even use it much longer and not have to worry about it. The last points here is you must submit your email to our list to be on that short order or that pre-order list. It says not going out to the masses. We are trying to get those who are serious about prepping helped first, and then we're going to go it out from there. So if you want to put your name on the pre-order list, meaning, so the unit itself will be about 2,500, so maybe you already have some panels, you can connect them in. So anywhere from 2,500 to 5,000 is going to be kind of a standard start kit. If you're wanting to get started with that, come put your email in on the list. If you want more information as stuff comes out, but you're not ready to do the pre-order, then come put your name on a separate list. But you will not get the pre-order price. That's the trade-off. If you do it sooner, you get the special discounts. If you want to wait, that's perfectly fine. Do what's best for you. Okay? So come down to the booth. We'll be able to answer some more questions. In about 25 minutes, we'll be starting the EMP class right back in here. So if you want to really know why I'm so set on having long-term power, come to that class and you'll see how important it is to have that long-term power. Thank you so much for coming. Please come to the booth, put your email in, and we'll answer some more questions there.